So today we will be talking about Sigmund Freud, no, one of the most influential thinkers of the 20th century. Part ni siya sa atong psychological na perspective on the concept of selfhood. One of the things groundbreaking concepts niya was that on the idea of unconscious level of butanta of mental processes and unconscious nga mga mental processes, no, that underlies most of our behavior or mental processes, no. Many of the decisions, many of the behaviors that we had, many of the thoughts that's running through our mind are actually processed in unconscious nga level, no, that you're not even thinking about it, yet it's there, no. So that's one of his greatest contributions, no, sa area sa psychology and even in the area of human behavior, no. So that Freud, being a medical doctor, specializes in neurology, developed his ideas about personality from his work with psychiatric patients, no. So that according to Freud, personality has structures, no. So agian lang nato ang pinaka basics ni Freud, no. So according structures, or on other references, it's called the provinces of the mind, no. So it has three provinces: the id, the ego, and the superego. Okay, so the id is the part that consists of unconscious drives and is the individual's reservoir of psychic energy, no. The id has no contact with reality, and it works according to the pleasure principle. The id always seeks pleasures and avoids pain. So if inyo ning makita ng diagram sa left side, we have the id sa ubos, the ego, which is in touch with reality. This part here constitutes reality. Under that constitutes unconscious nga mechanism, no? So we have the ego, which is in touch with reality, the id under the unconscious, submerged in the unconscious rather, and then we have the superego, the morality principle, which is partly submerged in unconscious and partly in conscious. Maabot ta dra later, no. So focus sa id, no. So dira ang unconscious drives, no, and then the reservoir of psychic energy. Everything that is unwanted, everything that is deemed to be taboo in social nga environment or social context are gina-push down na siya sa id, because basically dili siya acceptable. So and once dili siya acceptable, what happens is that it's pushed down sa id. Nganong di man siya i-erase altogether sa mind. Gina-push down siya sa id because the idea here is that there, in certain concepts or in certain personal experience natay gitawag nga psychic energy, there's a drive together with the experience that we have, and so we still need the psychic energy towards that. And so kinahanglan pagyapon nato na siya, so i-push down siya sa id because there is an energy that is needed to function properly in conscious level. An example ani would be, example lang what if ang isa ka person na ulawan siya in public. Okay, so in this scenario, this person na ulawan siya in public, in any scenario nga conjure nimo sa imong mind, na ulawan siya in public, and so what happens is that he has to move over the experience. Although naulawan siya, and then na belittle siya, for example, inana. So what happens is i-push katong memory and experience, i-push down sa id so that it doesn't hurt the person anymore, right? I-push down siya sa id. But this person, since di na siya gusto maulawan, okay, Ang mahitabo is kaning psychic energy from this experience gamito ni siya sa ego so that the next time around when the scenario comes up, dili na niya buhaton next time ang mga blunders that led to him nga maulawan. Okay? So that's the butanta rough mechanism right there. Okay? Next is the ego. Is the part of personality that deals with the demands of reality. Muna siyang in touch sa reality. The ego abides with the reality principle. What is real? What you see? What you experience in the moment. So that's the what you call reality principle. It tries to bring the individual pleasure within the norms of society. Right? So, let's take that for example. Katong example na to ganina, scenario. Person A, naulawan siya in a social context, butanta sa classroom. Naulawan siya sa classroom, as in naulaw kay siya and then that. So, the experience itself, push down sa id, an example lang, so that di na siya maulawan, it doesn't hurt, no? So, ang butanta mechanism sa ego is that naaman dira ang reality, right? Naadira ang reality. So, the reality is that scenario might come up later. And so, kwaon niya tong energy from that experience nga naulawan siya. I think many of you would agree to this, di ba? That you have experienced this from butanta, from your personal experience. For example, reporting, presenting in front of the class, no? Naulawan ka, and so what happens is that the memory is pushed down sa id. But the energy, the motivation, and the emotion behind nga, di na ko dapat maulawan sunod, is used by the ego so that whenever the scenario comes up, he will use that motivation and that drive nga di na siya maulawan balik. And so, that brings the idea nga mangita siya og adjustment mechanism, mangita si person A og adjustment mechanism na i-drive saya nga di na ko maulawan balik. And so unsay ang buhaton, maybe next time sa reporting magtuon na siya tarong, or maybe next time sa reporting magdala na siya visual aid. So that, no, so it tries to bring the individual pleasure within the norms of society. Since wala na ko naulawan, then naay gitawag nga pleasurable nga feeling towards achieving something. Now, nganong within the norms of society man? Because, for example, si person A naulawan, unsay di alternative? Sige, naulawan siya because wala siya naka-present og properly sa reporting. So, unsay alternative sa magtuon og tarong ay magdalag visual aid? Unsay alternative? Pwede siya mag-wild sa classroom, no? Pwede niya pangsumbagon tanan nanaway niya, tanan tao nga gikatawan siya, pwede niya sumbagon after the end of the class, pwede kayo. But the thing with the ego is that it brings the person within the norms of society. It brings the person to attain pleasure within the norms of society. Ang pag-wild in public places, ang paglasong, ang pagpanumbag of other people is not within the norms. No, it's actually considered butanta negative behavior. And so dili to buhaton ni person A, but rather ang buhaton niya is katong other alternative nga, what if magtuon na lang day ko, I will use this drive, I will use this energy nga para di ko maulawan, this motivation, magtuon ko, and the next time around nga mag-report na ko, di na ko maulawan, I get the pleasure, and I also get what? The acceptance of society, of the immediate social environment, and that is the classroom. And so that's the idea of the ego. The id and the ego, no, do not consider whether something is wrong or right. The superego is the harsh internal judge of our behavior. And dira sa tong superego, dira nakarest ang gitawag nga norms of society. Dira nakarest ang norms. So basically, whatever is good, whatever it deemed as good or right would be under sa superego, part siya sa norms. Because lagi, we still have this concept of bad and good in terms of human behavior. But that concept actually is very fluid. Unsay good, what is good and what is bad, and how do you define a good person? Ano, no? So uh, the superego is reflected in what we often call the conscience, ang konsensya. Now, it evaluates the morality of our behavior. The superego does not consider reality. It considers only whether its impulses can be satisfied in acceptable and moral terms. No? If pwede ba ka maka-attain og pleasure within an acceptable moral terms. Meaning, pwede ba ka maka-gain sa acceptance sa other people without resorting to violence? Pwede ba ka maka-gain og respect without resorting to to being too aggressive? So inana, no? Pwede ba ta maka-attain og, for example, good grades without without magbash sa ubang tao, no? Or without demeaning other people, no? So inana. So one of those theories, one of the parts sa theories ni Sigmund Freud would be the psychosexual stages of personality. No? Freud believes that we go through universal stages of personality development, and that each stage of development we experience pleasure in one part of the body more than others. Ang tawag ani would be pleasure centers. Okay? So naay part sa imong body that dira mag-center around, dira ma-focus around ang butag gitawag nga pleasure, no? Wherein dapat siya fulfill matud pa. No. So first stage dira would be the infant, no? The infant's pleasure centers on the mouth. So mo nang gitawag na siya oral stage, kaysa mouth ang iyahang pleasure center. Sucking and biting are chief sources of pleasure that reduces tension in the infant. If pakabantay mo ang mga bata, hilig sila og kaon, hilig sila drink, right? It gives them pleasure. If walay pagkaon or walay drink, one of the things that they do is they tamsak, no? So inana. So that's the oral stage, and according kang Freud, no, pwede ta matawag nga ma-fixate sa isa ka stage. So the idea here is that the pleasure center sa bata also, or sa tao, also plays the role of the part wherein maka-reduce siya og tension sa infant. No? So una tamsak, and we can revert to that actually if ma-stress ang tao. Gitawag na siya og regression, wherein they revert to tamsaking just to reduce the tension. Munang sa uban cases when people are stressed, di ba natay gitawag nga stress eating ta para ma-reduce ang tension and anxiety sa lawas. Then we have the next oral stage would be the anal stage. During the time the child experiences toilet training. The child's greatest pleasure involves the anus, the urethra, and eliminative functions associated with them. So malingaw siya, and even kita as adults, no, we tend to feel pleasure when magpagawas ta og hugaw, and it's actually true on all accounts, no. Whenever we feel whenever we eliminate our hugaw, no, mag-poop or mag-urinate, actually it's one of the most pleasurable feeling sa human experience, right? So that, no? So during anal stage, the child would have pleasure in releasing this waste ng mga materials from their body, and they would feel pleasure from doing it. And so what would happen is that diri na mo enter ang gitawag nga intervention sa parents, no? So nanay gitawag nga toilet training, no? Ang bata would be trained how to use the toilet. And so unsay implication ani? Ang implication ani would be the child would learn to be responsible towards himself, no? So sa oral stage, you're fed, no, actually you're just waiting for your parents, for your mother, your father, no, para pakanon ka to satisfy these pleasures sa imong mouth, no. But sa anal stage, no, i-train na ka that while you can enjoy these simple pleasures of life, no, mag-poop or mag-urinate, you also have to butanta bear responsibility sa imong kaugalingon. So akong own hugaw, ako ang limpyuhan, no. Dili na nga si mama pa or si papa pa ang mag clean, right, no. And so we will mature, and we will be at this point sa ana stage 18 to 36 months, we will be flexible enough and butanta dexterous enough sa atong kamot, so, nga we will learn how to clean ourselves, no. So again, ang implication na is that my body is my responsibility. So this actually gives two alternative consequences sa personality type sa bata, sa tao. Gitawag ni siya og anal retentive and anal expulsive. Anal retentive would be those children who were successful enough in their toilet training, no, and this anal retentive, they know how to retain, how to control their own hugaw, so that whenever the time comes up, okay, nanay CR, magpoop nako. So they become responsible for their own selves, no, and that these children, these people will grow up to be responsible and stingy, emotionally controlled individuals, according to Freud. While the other alternative to that would be anal expulsive. At this stage, at this alternative, ang anal expulsive would be ang bata, it's dili kaayo successful ang iyang toilet training. Of course, later on, the child would know how to clean himself, no, whenever magpoop siya or mangihi. But the idea there is there is a time nga extended ang iyahang dependency towards sa parents, that the idea there is that iyahang hugaw, whenever magpoop siya, si mama pay bahala, okay, and so, or si papa pay bahala, akong hugaw is not my responsibility. So ang nahitabo sa anal expulsive children, they are less likely to become to display the characteristics of being stingy, to being controlled or responsible, although they display daw, according sa data, that they display daw the characteristics of being free and or free-minded and creative. So that. Next anal stage would be the phallic stage. The pleasure focus on the genitals as the child discovers that self-stimulation is enjoyable. But this self-stimulation actually wala ni siya malis, unlike sa adults na nga nanay adulterated na ang utok sa adults, right? Nanay mga dili maayo nga mga thoughts together with the self-stimulation. But sa phallic stage sa bata is that walay mga thoughts nga mga lewd, no, but rather it's a pure nga discovery that something there is pleasurable. And so this also opens up the gitawag nga it opens the child to his or her own sexuality, no. So inana, and so dira na din mag-blossom ang iyahang gitawag nga sexual nga development, no. It triggers the Oedipus and Electra complex na po dayon, which is one of those famous nga concepts ni Sigmund Freud. According ni Sigmund Freud is that ang Oedipus complex is that the boy has intense desire to replace his father and enjoys the affection of his mother. On the other hand, ang girl's pod sa Electra complex desire to gain the affection of her father and replace the mother. unsay implication na ning Oedipus and Electra? It's that it becomes the precursor sa atong gitawag stereotyping. Okay? So the boy has intense desire to replace his father and enjoys the affection of his mother. So what does he do? He wants to replace his father, but wala siya lain model towards the behavior, but iya pong father. And so anything that his father does, buhaton pud niya para ma-please si mama, para malingaw si mama. Suoton pud niya ang kalo ni papa, ang shoes, suoton pud niya sa iyang papa, and so on and so forth. Right? So but the idea there is dili gid niya makuha ang full affection sa iyang mama. The same sa mama towards the not the same sa wife towards sa iyang husband, no? So di gid na niya nagigitawag nga frustration dira wherein dili niya ma-replace ang father, no? The same sa babae, what she does is ginamimik niya ang behavior sa mama because she wants to gain the attention and affection of her father. But then again, dili gid niya ni ma-replace. So what happens? Na ay frustration. Ang mahitabo is that these feelings manggod, again, balikan nato ang id. These feelings dili man ni siya acceptable sa society. Right? So ipanaog ni siya sa id. So these feelings, this drive for affection towards the parent, di na siya acceptable sa society, and so gina-push ni down sa id. What happens is that naay crystallization, ma-crystallize ang behavior, no? But ang affection ma-usurp ang affection, mawala ang affection, but ang gitawag nga set of behaviors nga nakuha nimo through modeling your parents of the same sex, mahimo siyang basic for gitawag nga stereotypical nga behavior. That's why ang lalaki would act like lalaki and babae would act like babae because of Oedipus and Electra complex. And so balikan na to ang id. What happens to that butanta drive towards the parent of butanta of the opposite sex, right? Dili man siya acceptable society, push down sa id, but napa siya psychic energy mabilin sa iya, right? And so what happens is that most likely a person would look for a partner, a lifetime partner that most likely resembles the parent niya of the parent of the opposite sex. So ang babae would look for a characteristics nga naa dara sa characteristics sa isa ka lalaki nga murag silbi ganahan niya or nakit-an niya sa iyang papa, and ang lalaki would also look for a partner nga naay characteristics ka similar dira sa iyang mama. These characteristics might be physical, emotional, no, or any other aspect, no? So it actually holds true on many accounts, no? But again, we're dealing with human beings, dili gid kay siya matawag nga inana ka accurate. Okay? Next is the latency period. This phase is not a developmental stage but an intermission or a stepping stone phase wherein the child represses all interest in sexuality and ma-convert siya into socialization. And then we have the genital stage dayon, adolescence and adulthood. The genital stage is the time of sexual reawakening. So mo reawaken ang sexuality sa person, di na sa bata, adolescent na. So sa tao, mo reawaken, and the source of sexual pleasure now becomes someone outside of the family. Di ba sa phallic stage, within the family ang parent of the opposite sex. But since dili man na siya, that's a taboo, what happens is that it reawakens and ang iyang focus na towards someone outside the family. Freud believed that unresolved conflicts with parents re-emerge during adolescence. Ang issues nga itong gina-bring with our parents, or the issues that we have with our parents, mo re-emerge during adolescence. Once the conflicts are resolved, the individual becomes a capable becomes capable of developing a mature love relationship and function independently as an adult. So that's the thing with genital stage pod. That's one of the things that Freud got right pod no nga walay itawag nga you cannot build a relationship with other people not unless na-resolve sa nimo ang imuhang primary relationships, ang issue sa imong primary relationships with, especially with your parents, no? Because those mental baggages, those issues and conflicts that you had with your parents, actually you're bringing it with you sa inyong relationship. For example, issues of mistrust. For example, ginadala na nimo gikan sa imong experience with your parents, dal-una nimo sa imong next nga relationship na naagya po issues of mistrust, and whatever they do dili gyud nila ma-solve. And why is that? Because dili sila ang mo-solve, actually ikaw, and dili sila ang focal point sa issue, but rather ang imuhang issue with your parents. And so these issues daw must be resolved before ka makadevelop og mature loving relationship with other people, which is actually true. You have to fix yourself first before ka mangita og uban tao nga i-share nimo imong kaugalingon with, because if that issue remains unresolved, it becomes an elephant in the room. What do I mean? It becomes a problem that is big pero imuha lang gina set aside, no? You're just ignoring it as if wala siya dra, no? So inana. And so you need that to develop healthy relationships and to function independently as an adult. Freud argued that the individual may become fixated at any of these stages of development if he or she is underindulged or overindulged in a stage. Gitawag ni siya nga again, fixation. Fixation would be a term or the concept of Freud wherein a person actually gets fixated, stuck, no? Fixed or stuck in a certain psychosexual stage because wala na satisfy, no? So it becomes a defense mechanism that occurs when the individual remains locked in earlier developmental stage. So for example, sa oral stage, person might be an overeater, talkative, chismosa, no, backbiter. That's one of the, or an alcoholic, or butanta chain smoker. That's one of the manifestation of fixation in the oral stage. Even if dako na ka, ang pleasure center would still be in the mouth, no? And then we have the anal stage, no? It is ang concept niya, iyahang main core concept would be on self control. So inana. And we have the Phallic, of course. We have issues with the parents, Oedipus and Electra complex. That, and then the latency period, most likely walay tawag nga, it's just a stepping stone nga phase. So wala siya, most likely walay fixation may tabo ng latency period. So that's all for this session. Hopefully I'll see you all next video.